Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing our build of the Estes Sasha SA 2061 for what it's worth. In the intervening time between this video and the previous one, it only took another 30 seconds or so, but I did get the end bit off safely. It is right flush against this, the eyelet here, so yeah, be very careful with that. You do not want to damage that. Last thing I need to do right now anyway with the nose cone is we need to put some weight into it. This kit has, well, it has some decorative front fins to it, canards or whatever you want to say. I guess the point is the fins are farther up than you would need for stability's sake. So in order to deal with that fact, we're going to add a little bit of nose weight into the nose cone. It will affect performance, of course, but it's better to have a stable rocket than an unstable one. So we don't have a lot of choice in the matter. So nose weight's pretty straightforward. Take your clay and then make a nice preschool style worm out of it. And then that's going to get threaded into the nose cone. It's a fairly long nose cone, but the opening here is very wide, so hopefully this won't be an issue. I'm going to grab a piece of scrap balsa and use this to push the clay into place, hopefully. At least we'll start with that. So clay goes in. I'm actually just going to dump them both in at the same time. That actually feels very flimsy. Let's see if I've got a more, oh, yeah, I got a better one in here somewhere. Here we go. Alright, so much thicker. I'm just going to ram this stuff in and pack it in as best I can. I can see pretty much where this is because it casts a pretty dark shadow. You might be able to see better than I can how this is going. But we do want it as far into the nose as we can. I can see that there seems to be a pretty big gap in the nose. So it's not all the way in as far as it could possibly get. And I can again tell that based on the shadow that the clay casts, or the fact that it makes the plastic darker, one of those. So, I mean, that's pretty good. If you really wanted it in farther, you should probably be more careful about how you put the clay in. I just chucked it in, as you saw. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference. I mean, that's maybe a centimeter or so farther in that it could get, so it is somewhat adversely affecting things, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. You might consider using something even more robust than a dowel there, like launch lug, or not launch lug, the launch rod to push it in farther, but I'm content with this. Yeah, it's probably alright for now. Could try a screwdriver, but not that one. I need a longer one. Anyway, so this is fine. Off it goes. I don't need that for a while. My main goal today is going to be, well, to build the engine mounts. Before I do that, though, just one quick bit. So all the wood, I have cut all the balsa pieces out at this point, and I have sanded the burrs off of each part. The fins, I'm going to sand them a little bit to round the edges. There are a lot of them. This is going to be taking some time, but I'm not going to do it all here. Short version is, all you really need to do is grab your sanding block and just round that corner. Probably take, I'd say, like 15 passes before I'm going to stop and check and see what it looks like. I'm just looking at the edge. Yeah, it looks fine. And repeat on the other side. Great. Once you've put the round on both sides, you want to make sure it's pretty symmetrical, and the part in the middle tends to get, for whatever reason, the way I sand it, I guess it's, you know, on me, it tends to get not sanded very well, so it tends to be pretty flat still. So if that is the case, then I would take a couple more passes at just the middle maybe. But yeah, it looks pretty good. There is a little bit of fuzziness here, so I'm just going to rub sandpaper over it to take off any of the fibers that have been knocked loose. And, you know, it's a decent round. I'm reasonably happy with it. You could, if you were feeling particularly aggressive, airfoil this. It's not all that thick balsa, so I wouldn't be too aggressive about it, but airfoiling is to make it like a kind of a diamond shape. I don't love doing that, honestly. It's time consuming and it's fairly difficult to make a decent one. I am going to round the back end of the fin as well, though. Not every face, but the main faces. Like, I'm not going to bother with this. Sometimes I get the top. We'll see. Yeah, that needs more work. Looks decent, except in the middle again. This is, like I said, sometimes the middle just doesn't seem to get touched, just like the edges do. So I'm going to change the orientation of my sanding block so that I'm basically just getting the middle here. Let's see how that did. It's better. You know, you can still see right in here the wood is flat as opposed to curved, so that's not what I want. A few more passes. The rounded shape is still pretty good, and it looks better. Alright, so I'm going to repeat the process with all this, well, not these, but all the fin parts, including these. That will take a while. Not great cinema, so we'll come back to that. Alright, this piece, don't need that for the time being. I will need it eventually. These are spacers to go from C and D 24 millimeters to E's. So those we might need at some point, but all right now. Anyway, there are going to be two motor mounts because this is a two-stage rocket. We'll see how far I get with the first one today anyway, but I'm going to be starting with the booster part. That would be the first stage. And I'm going to do the measurement first. This is slightly out of order according to the instructions, but I'd rather do some measurement first, honestly. So I need to make a couple marks on this. I need to make a mark at 1 inch. That's there. And I need to make a mark at 3 1/4 inches. That's there. And I need to put glue inside this thing at 3 inches, which I'm going to get right by using this spacer, and I'm going to mark this at 1/2 inch because that's how far I'm going to need to push it in. So there we go. I'm not going to mark the other one just quite yet. It's kind of, maybe it's inefficient to do things piecemeal, but I don't really want to confuse the tube that I'm working on with this one that I'm not. So there we go. All right, I need an engine block, and let's just make sure I'm doing it this way. So that's up. Doesn't hurt anything to draw an arrow on there. All right, let's grab a dowel. It's balls of scrap, really. And I am going to put the glue 3 inches into this tube. Well, it might help to know where 3 inches is. 3 inches. I conveniently have a line already marked there. It's a nice thing about using these things repeatedly. You tend to get marks that save you some time. You just have to know which one's which. So I am going to take my glue, load it up on my stick, and then just brush it on the interior of this thing as if I were using a paintbrush, except for glue. doesn't, the accuracy of this part is not super important. You don't want to get it too far, because if you put the glue too far in, then, well, that actually would be kind of a problem, because when you push the block in, you're not going to get to the glue. If you put it in not far enough, it's not that big of a deal, because the act of pushing the engine block in will solve the problem for you. I guess the potential is that you could have glue on the inside, which would affect the fit. Alright, so this is going to go in, and then I'm going to use the spacer here to push it in to the mark, and then I'm going to take it out. Okay, easy enough. Then, so the first stage, this is kind of interesting. The first stage is going to get an engine hook, which is a little different for a two-stage rocket, but you know, that's fine. The deal is with this, the way that the two stages are going to ignite is a little different than some types of two-stage ignition. They're not going to be in physical contact with each other. That's the difference, which I guess is kind of unavoidable, considering that we're using 24mm motors, and we're going to be basically building it as if it can handle an E. Alright, so my mark here, I think this is going to be in front of, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell, in front of the engine block, but I think I might be cutting into the engine block, so that could be a bit of a problem. I'm going to move it a little bit forward. Yep, there we go. So that is mildly off, but not wildly so. I don't want to cut through the engine block. That would be irritating. Yeah, and I can feel, I feel in here with my finger, this is now right, it's right flush against the interior of the engine block. I guess it wouldn't hurt to remeasure this just to make sure I did this right, but yep, that's fine. Alright, so that's where the hook goes, cut in with the hobby knife. Now, I need to get the adapter here so that it fits inside the body tube. Now, I am apparently going to be using the ones with holes for reasons that I guess I'm not entirely sure why this is going to have holes in it. It might be to, I don't know, allow some of the hot gas from when the second stage ignites to go through without causing damage. I don't know. You can, I'm probably going to end up using the hobby knife for some of this. I generally don't bother with using the hobby knife to get the major big pieces out. Just be very gentle, don't try to force it. If it's not easily coming, then just cut through the little burrs with the hobby knife. But be very gentle, you know, a little bit at a time. And that one, so that one's a little stuck. I will use the knife on that. Or maybe it'll just come off. There we go. Alright, so all the little holes, on the other hand, I'm not going to try to use my hands on that. They're too small. So I'm just going to cut right through the burr where this has been laser cut. And most of these are just popping right out. So far anyway, and as soon as I say that, oh, there we go. Never mind. Okay. See what we got. Yeah, these are basically all, they were basically all cut out. Some of them were just a little more stuck than the others. Okay, same deal with this. Both of these are both identical because they both have this little notch. I assume that's where the engine hook is gonna be aligned, which is easy enough to manage. Okay. What else we got? That one. Okay, so they are all set. All these little dots, they are of course garbage, but I want to get rid of them so they don't actually accidentally get stuck into anything. Whoops, like my hands. Alright, now these are what? The first one's going to go with the 1-inch mark, and again they're interchangeable, so that shouldn't really be that big of a deal. I am going to line up the hook with that notch. I can just kind of gently push it down. I'm going to push it past where it's supposed to go, and then, well, I'm going to line it up so it's on right, on straight. The 1-inch mark is right here. It's underneath the hook at the moment, which is a mild irritation, but you know, I can find it. A little bit of glue at that 1-inch mark, and then we'll slide this in place. Okay. Let's check. Looks good. And then I have a little bit of glue that seeped out, so I'm just going to brush it up with my fingers. I'm going to put a fillet on this eventually, but I don't think I'm going to worry about that just quite yet. Next, we need this guy. This is going to hold the hook down more or less, so it's going to go flush against this one. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue in front here to give it something to attach to. And that should actually help keep it perpendicular to the tube as well. That is one of the potential downsides to using these. They don't, since they're made out of paper, they aren't always lined up perpendicularly, which would be a bit of a problem. It means it wouldn't fit in into the main body tube particularly well. Alright, so that's great. Now we need to put this other one on. This other one is going to go right at the engine hook. So the notch in it, I guess, doesn't really matter all that much. I think I will put it just past the hook. Well, maybe right in front of it, actually. It's supposed to be at 3 1/4, and remember I moved the engine hook location ever so slightly to accommodate where the engine block was. So I'm not actually going to take it past the hook. I'm going to put it right up to the hook. And again, smoothing the glue out. Ooh, that's not straight at all. And you can tell, just spin it, it should just, you know, it shouldn't look like it's wobbling to you. If it's wobbling to you, then either the cardstock itself is a little warped or you don't have it on quite right. Alright, we're going to measure again. We should have these at 1 inch and 3 1/4. It's actually, this one's a little farther up than it should be, and this one is, that one's pretty good. I could certainly adjust this down a little bit. I made a little bit of a difference. That shouldn't matter all that much. I don't think that's a precision measurement that we need to worry about here. All right, last but not least, so the way that the staging works in this, remember the last thing that a model rocket motor does is it kicks out the ejection charge. So there's one last bit of propulsive fuel that blows this way instead of that way to make the rocket go. We have this piece right here. This is supposed to, I guess, channel it so that it's, I don't know, more focused when it goes from the first stage into the second, because the ejection charge is what's going to light the second stage. So apparently that's what this piece here is for. This is plastic, obviously, this is not. The instructions suggest that you use plastic cement. I am not going to use plastic cement. Plastic cement I don't think would work terribly well with this, so we're going to go with a bit of CA. CA is for adults, so if you are not an adult and you are doing this, either do it under heavy supervision or just ask somebody to do it for you. This is, you got one crack to do this. Now, I have to say, that was a very loose fit, so I'm not particularly worried about, you know, getting this completely on before the glue sets. It'll be fine. So just line it up, push it on. If you want to spin it around, I suppose you could. It's already starting to set. I can feel it. There we go. That is set. That's not coming off, so you know, hopefully we did it right. We did it right. It's not that complicated a bit there. Alright, do be careful that you don't end up touching this now because I did squeeze a little bit of glue out the top, so it is potential glue yourself to something risk at the moment. Alright, I think that's about as far as I'm likely to get with this. We'll work on building the second one of these in the next video, but before we wrap it up, I am going to put fillets around everything, basically around both edges. So that's just, get yourself some glue. This one I might as well, right? Might as well just put them everywhere I can. This is it's gonna make it stronger. The only thing I want to be careful about here is that I don't end up getting any glue in those holes, which is a potential problem with the lower part of this, since this bit, whatever that's called, is higher up. So long as I smooth this out, it shouldn't be an issue. And if there are any spots that the glue is a little too close to the hole, well, then we'll just brush it off. Okay, I do have a bit of glue going into these, so it's not really what I wanted. Okay. Same deal up here. This shouldn't be an issue because it's not as high up. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a pencil here. Not because I want to draw anything, but because it's round-ish and it can go into the hole and it can collect any of the excess goop that got in there that I don't want. Alright, anyway, let's put the fillet on the other side here too. And I mean, I actually did kind of make a decent fillet here. You get kind of like a proto fillet as you push the ring through the glue on one side of it usually. So you don't always need to make a good fillet on both sides, but it doesn't hurt. In fact, it's probably for the best. It makes this joint stronger. This joint needs to be reasonably strong since it's connecting the force of the motor to the rocket body. Alright, so that seems to be a good place to stop for now. This needs to dry, of course. Next video, well, I guess we'll build the first stage. So thanks for watching. I'll see you then.